first I'd like to say thank you. For you all could have been anywhere in the world, but you're rocking with us. We definitely appreciate you. And you know, I'm a true New Yorker, so I love the show. But for those that don't have context, we're gonna show you a little clip real quick.
Yo, welcome to Desus Mero, yo.
Let's go.
Let's go. Is this Cloverfield? What is this?
You can curse, right?
Yeah, showtime, baby.
You're popping, and we all love you.
When I first saw you guys, I thought this is the future, this is the way it ought to be.
Oh, yeah!
Hey!
And just like that, we are back. I feel like I need to say your session. I'm super excited about this conversation. Thank you all for saying yes. For those watching, I hope that you will pick up some major keys that the panelists will be dropping throughout this conversation. And you know, please bring your umbrellas out because that's when I brainstorm. See what I did there? But we're gonna hop right in. Question to all of our panelists. Let's talk about like inspiration real quick. What inspired your journey into writing? Josh, we can start it with you.
Sure, let's do it. I mean, like, I loved watching and comedy when I was a kid. I love stand-up. I do stand-up now. I loved reading funny stories. My wife is preparing right now to interview David Sedaris at the end of the week, and just like her like reading up on his stuff to get ready to interview him. I'm just like, oh, the best, the coolest. Like I'm still such a fan of like funny writing, funny performance. And so like, I think when I went to college thinking, oh, I'm going to maybe like write plays. Like I was real like kind of up my own butt about it. And then I was like, okay, maybe I'll write funny books. Like maybe I'll write like humorous literary short stories. But by the time I graduated, I was like, oh, maybe I can just do like comedy. And it turns out I could. So that's where I am now.
Cool. Heaven or Michael?
I feel like I was definitely one of those kids who grew up reading a lot, and that was like my escape. So I feel like it's just a very classic, like Harriet the Spy with her journal.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like that's definitely where it started. And then once I learned you could like weaponize writing into humor, I was like, ooh, we got something here. Okay. And then, yeah, I've been blessed enough to try out a few different kinds of writings, and yeah, that's basically the start.
For me, it's the thing Josh said about being up your own butt when you get to college is very familiar. I think I was always like really into film and filmmaking and all that stuff, and then I got to college and did that, and I'm still really inspired by movies and that kind of thing. But I also found, I think when I got to college and then working on TV shows afterwards, that I don't love like production. I love to like think of things and have other people have to worry about how it gets done and how it gets funny and stuff. So it's a very privileged position to be in. It's just like I want to be the ideas guy, I don't want to get my hands dirty, but that's kind of and that's, once you kind of find a path that lets you do the thing that is like the funnest thing, which is coming up with the craziest ideas and all that, how do you say no to that? So
Nice. And again, because we have a lot of young people watching, we do want to be mindful of dropping intentional major keys, right? So, some of them are figuring it out on their own. Some of them have chosen to go to college. Both are necessary. What skills, like tangible skills, do you actually need to write for TV?
I'll go. I think one of the biggest skills is just being a pleasant person to work with.
Yeah.
As the head writer of this show, and I mean, our staff is like just incredibly nice to work with, and there's no problems ever, you know what I mean? And if someone, it's like, I think a huge part of it is just obviously there's talent involved, obviously there's hard work involved, obviously all that stuff. But if we're talking intentional major keys, I think one of the biggest ones is like, be someone in a writer's room or on a set or in an office situation that people don't have to kind of like worry about, and B, who, you know, and then obviously brings a lot to the table and all that, you want to contribute and all that stuff. But I think that just being a pleasant person, and that doesn't mean being a doormat, that doesn't mean like, you know, that means speaking up and all that stuff, but just kind of having that emotional intelligence.
Absolutely, absolutely. And for Heaven or Josh, like, what's one major key that you learned later that if you could reimagine your trajectory, you would give, right? So, like, for example, I learned later that, relationships are the major keys in life. Had I known that at like 16, my life would have been completely different. So
Totally.
what's the key for you two?
Oh, an easy one for me, I talk about it every day, is go to therapy, friends. Love therapy. We stand therapy. Therapy's that bra, okay? Historic. Just nothing but hits from therapy. So yes, 10 out of 10 from therapy. I feel like people underestimate how much it does actually affect your writing or your work. It's not just working through your emotions or your feelings. Not that that's not important work, but like it is directly, I think, also sometimes related to why do you procrastinate all the time? Or like, why are you missing deadlines? Like those kinds of things come up in therapy in ways that are really useful and like tangible ways for a working writer. So I would definitely tell my younger self and every younger person to start therapy if you can, or find a way to check out a subsidized college situation, or a lot of local clinics also offer subsidized therapy.
Thank you. Therapy, I got that, folks, right? Therapy, be a nice person, don't be a jerk. So that's
like, these are so simple, but like it goes so far.
Totally.
It really does.
Indeed. Josh.
I think one thing that this is gonna sound like almost cartoonishly simple, and that you'll all like log off after I say and be like, this guy doesn't know anything, is to like just do the kind of work you think you want to be doing. Like if you are like, I want to write like topical funny comedy for TV, like there are places you can start. Like you can make a web series, you can submit pieces of writing somewhere like the New Yorker that has open submissions and looks at everything that they get, and so like I think the younger me, there was like stuff like when I graduated school and I was doing a lot of stand-up, but I wasn't doing that much other writing, and that's what I would tell me is just like, hey, just like do stuff and then see if it sticks, and if you don't like it, do different stuff. And that kind of thing is like definitely, when I think back, the one like, oh, you probably should have done that differently, instead of just like goofing off from age 20 to 26, like goof off in a way where you have like a body of work to show for it.
Indeed. So y'all got that, folks, right? Like, be a nice person, therapy matters, and do the work. Simple. We can hang this up. This is a wrap. It's been great. No, so I mean, say that again, Michael.
I just said it's been delightful. Have a great
Yes, it's been great. Y'all be cool now. So what was your journey into writing for Desus Mero? Like, again, classic, iconic. I'm from Southside Jamaica, Queens. Love to plug that as much as my Bronx brothers love to plug the Bronx. You know, what is it like writing for this show, and what makes this show different than any other thing on late night?
I'll jump in again. I don't want to.
The pressure.
Cut anybody off, but I think what makes this show different is, I mean, this show I've written for a couple of late night shows, and this show is so different from that. And I think what makes it different is our hosts. There's two of them, A and 2. That's great, going great.
Roman numeral 3.
Right, exactly. There's 2 of them, which is just a different situation than a lot of shows. B, they're the two, like, I'm not blowing smoke, I don't think they're watching. They're the 2 funniest people I've ever met. And then I also think that they, you know, you're not writing a monologue like you would for most late night hosts. You're not like, they're not reading a lot off of a prompter. It's a lot more kind of guiding them around to different topics, seeing what hits, working in the edit to put it together, that kind of thing. It's just a very, very different experience. There was an interview recently where Desus described it this way, and I heard it and I was like, oh, that's beautiful. And I wish I'd thought of that. And like, that's why he's the best. But he said of him and Mero, he said, we are the water and the writers for us are irrigation and stuff like that. They guide the water to where it should be, where it's going to be most effective, like that kind of thing. And so that to me was like, hearing that like just clicked, you know, after working on the show for 2 years, finally clicked into place. So that's
I now know why I'm here.
Right, exactly. That's great. But that was the experience. That's the experience of writing on the show, and I'll let someone else talk at this point.
Cool, Heaven.
No, yeah, I think that's a very useful metaphor. We move the poop. They provide the poop.
I said water, you said poop, whatever. It's
Any difference, right?
Organic material.
A little bit about my journey here. I think I took a very like the traditional intern route here. I would say maybe in terms of I did a bunch of TV film internships because I knew pretty early on that that's what I wanted to do. So I could focus on that pretty much. I knew like coming to New York, I went to Columbia. I didn't finish school, but like I knew it just gave me a focus that I know a lot of younger people sometimes want.
Yeah.
That kind of clarity for like, what do I want to do? And I feel like Josh said, it's okay to just try a bunch of stuff and see what sticks. So I did a bunch of internships, and I do feel like, that grind is a grind. I'm glad they're paying interns more these days, because when I was doing it, they were not.
It was rough.
And I was doing the like babysitting to sustain the internship, but I also still had to do school, and you know, it's not sustainable. And I also was doing work study. Good God. Jesus. I feel like at one point I was really just like pushing myself just to be in the industry or to do a TV internship. Mm-hmm. And that I think a lesson I learned is that some of those internships are useful, but some of those are just kind of proximity. And that's not the same thing as doing what you want to do. And it's okay if your job is not the thing you like get all the joy from. Like you can still have side projects, you can still make things with your friends, but understanding what you can get from certain places was just like a useful way to like move through all those internships. I got better at telling people like the NBC lady was like placing you in the large NBC Universal family internships. And I was like, listen, I'm not getting anymore, okay? Listen, girls, we're gonna be doing serious work if I'm moving this into my schedule. And she was great. Like, I'm grateful that she was like, you think you want the writer's room internship, but that's a coffee internship. What you really want is SNL's set design like department. And I got a lot more access to scripts and like being on set to just see everything happen in a way that like if you are just looking at even just the title of the internship, you got to really think through the experience and not just what it looks like on the outside or what you think it will give you. You know what I mean? So that's those are my lessons from the intern grind.
Got it.
It's
more makepeace. Outside of it sucking, it's fine. Yes. Whatever. It happens.
Yeah. But also I met a lot of cool people through the intern grind. So it's not like it was a useless experience. It just was like a clarifying experience.
Absolutely. Shout out to Clarity one time. Josh.
Listen, yes.
I came through a very different path, which is I was like just doing comedy, just eating it a lot, just like really bombing for a number of years, just like a lot of like very visible unpleasant failure. And I just kind of kept doing comedy, pitching, writing pieces until stuff started to click. And I was performing stand-up performing in bigger, more visible festivals and the clubs around New York, and was placing humor pieces in online and stuff, and getting occasional things in print. And I had kind of like some viral social media stuff that eventually helped me get my manager, that helped me start submitting to write for shows. And then I after like a year of just submitting and submitting to like doing sample materials for probably 20 late night shows, I got hired at Last Week Tonight to do their social and digital stuff. So I did that for a year and then moved over and wrote for that show for John Oliver for 4 years. And then I've been with Desus and Mero since they've moved from Viceland to Showtime. So I started like pretty much right when they moved to Showtime. So that's kind of my path in a nutshell. Oh, but also, I wasn't like just doing failure professionally. I taught preschool full time. And then when I left preschool and had enough like stand up work that it was like a real part time job, I was tutoring. I tutored like high school entrance exams and SATs and stuff. So I did that. I taught preschool. I was doing stand up. I was selling writing pieces and just kind of like cobbling together enough money to live until I had like one job that was like, oh, this pays me like a salary and I can just do comedy things now.
Absolutely. I love that your journeys are drastically different. And, you know, Josh, you mentioned social media. How important, or is it important at all, right? Like, I'm thinking about the people who are like, I hate social. I don't want to talk about Instagram. Don't send me anything. You know, is social media and having a social media presence important to get into comedy?
So I don't think it's necessary, but I do think if it is something you can stomach and something that you have any affinity for, it can be really helpful because like social media is made out of people, right? So like you were saying, Syreeta, relationships are everything. And like you can build like collaborative, collegial relationships with people that you don't even really meet in person just by like admiring each other's work and communicating from afar. And you can put work out into the world and have it seen by people who wouldn't otherwise see it. So I don't want to be like, everybody, what you're doing right now, just get on TikTok, make up a dance. But what I do mean is like, if there is an avenue on social media to like cultivate the kind of relationships you want to be having and share the kind of work that you're making, it can really give you a leg up in a visible way, because like the best scripts you write are not as useful if you don't, or whatever you're making, like the best films you shoot, they're not as useful to you in a career sense if you don't have like an avenue to show them to people.
Got it. Indeed, indeed. And the next question is for all three of you again. You know, I love that you were super transparent, like, hey, you know, interning was cool. It was not the bomb.
Okay.
Like, be clear. So, you know, as you all have been able to move in this world of comedy writing and just writing for TV, period, what are some of the most challenging aspects of your job? And we're gonna start back with you.
Let's talk about the whiteness in the room.
Real.
Historically, and true to my life, white people have been an issue. No, I do think part of the difficulty I had early on getting into just late night or comedy period is that I feel like sometimes it's just like even the references are so different that we're not even talking about the same thing. So I felt like the environments I was in early on, I wasn't always comfortable being like the vocal Black person in the room, just because I was like new to the space or whatever. But I feel like with time and like having done my own projects, I have a stronger voice and I feel way more comfortable walking into like Stephen Colbert's writer's room and being like, good morning, white people, on particularly rough days. Like it took time to get to that point. Yeah. And like, I feel like I worked through my own humor and racial anxieties through my own work. So it didn't feel like I was bringing it into the workplace. I was just kind of doing my own thing. But yeah, the environments have been tough. I feel like people are generally nice, but also hire the same exact people over and over and over.
This is the remix. No Puff Daddy. Got it. Josh is shaking his head. Josh, challenges. Michael, challenges.
I have nothing to challenge. I think that's like a big, I think that's a big thing within the industry of like not wanting new people, right? Trusting the same people, but also specifically, as Heaven said, not wanting new perspectives, like thinking you want diversity, but not wanting like actual challenging perspectives in a room.
Or to like do the work of learning my references. I know
Mhm.
all your references. No, come on, I got them all.
Great.
Yeah.
So I have no challenge to that.
No,
And I will say that
LOL. I wasn't actually. Josh, you are hilarious. I wasn't asking if you had any challenges to what Evan was saying. I was saying, do you have challenges at work? No.
I do, yes. But I wanted to, I'm sorry. I misinterpreted.
And to be clear, that's challenges from my past jobs. It is a decidedly different, like just environment overall at Desus Mero. I feel like it's such a different show.
That was so, y'all look funny in real life. All right. We're gonna like go out when the streets are open, you know, and hang out. But yes, Josh, Michael, I would definitely like to know what are the most challenging aspects of your job?
I think I do want to second what Heaven said. I don't think it's challenging to be a white person in the industry, and I don't think.
You don't think so? No.
No. I want to go on record.
Got it.
I don't think I have those same challenges by any means, but I do think that a thing that is again, I don't want to even characterize it as a challenge, but I do want to say that people like white people have a responsibility to listen to. I've been in rooms where people get defensive and stuff, and it's like that. Like, navigating that stuff is I apologize, is difficult enough, you know, when you're not a person of color. So I honestly can't imagine what it's like to be a person of color navigating that kind of stuff. And so I think that's I'm just glad that we're talking about it and that Heaven brought it up. I think it's like such an important thing to talk about, and that you know, we talk about with even at our room all the time. So I think that's like, not, I don't want to characterize it as a challenge for me, but I think it's a challenge for the industry. You know what I mean? And I think that's so important.
Absolutely. Josh?
I also think that like even on the base level, it is kind of a frustrating, challenging industry, because in most cases, even if you get really lucky and have like or have many institutional and systemic advantages in your favor, there is so much rejection, and there are so many no's that you have to hear. And I think just like the number of talented people that are working in the industry, like that have been in the industry and that are always kind of emerging with like new work in new formats is so exciting. But also it is like, oh, this is, I'm not necessary. Like I could walk out of my home into the East River, and I have friends that would miss me, but like show business wouldn't miss me. Like comedy wouldn't miss me. And so I think like just dealing with that kind of like, oh, there's I'm just one person, and to like have the kind of drive to keep creating work and to keep putting yourself out there, I think is like a challenge that I don't want to discount.
But also, who will fill the like cardigan Boston comedy bubble?
Somebody that went to Harvard will take my job.
Colin Jost.
Colin Jost will take my job.
LOL in real life. You know, especially because you just mentioned that the host of the water and you all are guiding the water, right? Mm-hmm. So what does that look like as far as like feedback from audience members? How do you deal with feedback? How do you kind of like guide the host just as far as like super New York references that maybe no one outside of Gun Hill Road will understand? Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, how do you deal with those two things? Michael, we can start with you.
I think our room is so good. I mean, I think our whole reason for being, and also a skill that we've all developed, is to get out of the way. And I mean, that's like
Wait, hold on. You have to say that one more time for the people in the back so that
people in the back of the Zoom get out of the way. But I think that our room is so good. I mean, when you're dealing with Desus and Mero, especially, two of, again, the funniest dudes who've ever lived, and like they are going a mile a minute and everything is gold. Not, like, it's like, look, I'll say it. I don't get every reference, if you can believe it. But I trust you work on Desus Mero because you trust Desus Mero and you love Desus Mero, and they're gonna say stuff that sometimes we'll get to the end of an edit, like, so the show's about to be broadcast, and I'll be like, wait, does anybody know what that means? Like that reference to that thing?
Chopped cheese? What is
no. I know what a chopped cheese is. All right? At this point, if I didn't know what a chopped cheese was,
yeah,
I'd
you
be
gotta
in
get out
trouble.
of here, Michael.
But there, some very obscure '90s hip hop artist or something like that, that I might have missed. And then so we'll ask people, and sometimes people will be like, yeah, I don't know, but like it seems funny, and they're having a good time, and they get it for each other, and that's all that matters. Like, if they, you know what I mean, like, people love our show, I think, because of how much fun Desus and Mero are having with each other. And so it's not about, do I get all the references? It's not, you know what I mean? It's because it would be a very different show, and no one would like it. But I think it's just about making like trusting them, and they know what they're doing. You know what I mean? It's about getting out of the way.
Got it. And Hebben or Josh, can one of you speak to how do you get feedback from the audience, and do you even insert it in the show at all? And you're like, okay, Twitterverse, we hear y'all. Nobody cares. Tupac cares if don't nobody else.
I think we want to be making a show like Desus and Mero have been working together for years before I started working with them. So I think like like Mike said, my job is not to come in and change what they do. It's not to like make it my version of the show, but it is like, so like, I think hearing from the fans is really helpful, but it's also like, I take direction from Desus and Mero, from our other producers, like we're trying to make the show that we want to make. And so I don't try to get bogged down in the comments if they're excited about something, or if they're not feeling something, and people are like, do this, and they're like, we're not trying to do that, then I'm trying to take my orders from them pretty directly. And like, I also think we were talking about this before the Zoom started, Syreeta, that there are some things that are like super deep cut references, and part of my job is to like help that translate to audiences that maybe are watching but like aren't as deep in the New York references. Like if they bring up like the Jadakiss Sprite commercial, right? It's like, okay, how do we translate that to people that don't remember? Like, do we get the footage? Do we play it? Do we just like let it go over people's heads? And those conversations are like really fun and exciting to not explain too much, because we don't want to be like, and this is what it like you're saying, like, this is what a chopped cheese is, but you do want to go like, oh, hey, person that's like right on the edge, like maybe let me give you that push so that this thing pops for you.
Got it. Indeed. And for folks interested in clearly the amazing work that you all have been doing, how often do like career opportunities open up, and what does a person need to do, or what kind of juice does a person need to have to make somebody stand out? And Hebben, we can start with you.
I don't know about hiring. That's a Mike question. But I do think what helped me stand out is that I already had a relationship with the guys. But for people who don't, I mean, they had a large like application process. They still read a bunch of packets. And at the end of the day, what matters is that your material works for the hosts. And I think just having a lot of practice with packets is like the thing that helped me, the thing that helped me feel confident enough to be like, yeah, I can do this job. Because I had done late night before, but I was in the digital room at Colbert. And it's a little bit different because it's a little more, like on our show, it's a little more like, you have a small team and you're just gonna fly into the like the guest room and like record something real quick, and then it's a little bit more ragtag, whereas the writers are doing more scripted work. And I think I was just a little anxious at first about, am I really ready for this kind of job? And then I feel like I did the packet, I felt confident with it, the guys liked it, and I think that was the kind of the overlap of things that we like, and then like the things I bring to the table that they might not necessarily talk about is like the ideal like mix of things you should be thinking about. What you bring to the table that's already in their wheelhouse and how you can recreate their voice, and what you uniquely would bring that like none of the other writers are bringing.
Got it. And Michael, before we hop over to you to answer kind of like the part 2 of that question, for folks that don't know what a packet is, what is a packet?
Excellent question, because I too did not know, and I look and find out. I feel like it's just the standard language for hiring in late night is a packet, and the packet usually consists of like monologue jokes, bits, and things you can do with the celebrity guest. That's guest bits. I just said that. What is it? Or like musical guest stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, field pieces, that kind of thing.
Field pieces. It's usually structured by the interests of the host, but that's pretty much the standard way to apply for late night jobs. And I did not know about this until I started listening to podcasts with comedy writers.
Oh, you saved a bunch of people so many years. So shout out to you for that.
It's a useful resource because that's how I learned the language of just like, yeah, if you're not in the world, there's no way you would just magically know these words. And there's another book I would recommend that's like late night writing. What is it called? That's comedy writing for late night TV. Sorry about that.
As I glance to the array field of books behind me, all color coded.
Comedy writing for late night TV is just like a great like examples of packets, examples of like other late night show hosts from like Leno days, Letterman days. Obviously, it's a little bit dated, but that's late night.
The research is the research. The research is the research. And Michael wanted to ask you kind of like about that second, aspect of the question. How often do career opportunities open up? What would the process be like? We know about a packet now.
Yeah. The thing about these shows, these late night shows, is that it's a steady job. I mean, assuming the show sticks around, assuming your show is stable, like it's a steady job, and there's not a lot of turnover usually, which is actually like, I think one of the big issues. Not that I think that there should be more turnover just for turnover's sake, but I do think that is an issue when all of a sudden you have hosts that are, because of everything going on, are like, oh, we got to, diversify the room, and it's like, well, that kind of stuff, which is a great impulse. I mean, maybe coming a little too late for some shows or something, but like it's a great impulse. But then you have so many people who've been there forever, and there's no turnover because they're such great jobs. And so and that kind of thing is, I think, actually an issue that is like kind of looking for solutions in the industry and stuff like that. But that said, I mean, these jobs do come up, and when they do, it's, people start to reach out on Twitter and DMs, and I think anyone who's worked at a late night show knows that when word goes out that there's an opening, or like, oh, somebody leaves for a different show, or they've created a show, or they've gotten some opportunity and they leave, all of a sudden the email starts blowing up and the DMs and all that stuff. And which is not, I'm never mad at that. I mean, the worst that happens is, like, for me personally, is that I don't get around to responding, you know what I mean? Which is like, I don't feel great about, and I try to respond to everyone and stuff like that. But, there's a lot of, I don't think you're ever, no one's ever mad at someone for shooting their shot, kind of. I think that that's a great thing for people to do. And I wouldn't begrudge anyone for getting in the DMs about it or whatever. But I think, so I think it's hard to kind of know when these opportunities come up if you're not already in the industry. And that's another thing that we've been like working on, I think, trying to reach out to a different pool of people, and people who might not be already connected, which I think is, again, really important for diversifying rooms and getting different perspectives and things like that. So I'm rambling. I'm not sure
You answered
how
it. You did good.
to wrap it up.
You
but...
I mean, if you could tag me in, I got you.
Okay, great. Syreeta, save me.
Michael, got you, heard you. So, while you're mentioning like shooting your shot and it goes down in a DM, I'm literally thinking of every like rap verse in my head that's like, oh, it goes down. But, I think one term that we hear often is like writer's room. But we don't really know what the culture is like in the writer's room. So Josh, can we start with you just as far as what has your experience been like in the writer's room?
Sure. So every room I think has its own culture, and which I think is great. Like it shouldn't be uniform show to show. Like the needs and the personalities are so different. I was at the Last Week Tonight writers room for a long time, and that room was not it was like people more in their own offices writing quietly, and then we would all be in one room over the weekend and just like writing jokes and slowly losing our minds in a windowless room. The Desus Mero writers room, first of all, has windows, so major upgrade. But it's a very collaborative. It's like I know it's a real balance between kind of collaborative and independent work. And heaven stop me if I'm like misrepresenting anything, but there's like a real balance between, oh, we're all brainstorming on this, let's like all 5 people in the room kick these ideas around together, with Heaven and Claire and Robert and Z-Way, everybody like talking, and then like, oh, hold on, I need some time to think, let me like go off and like crunch this out myself in a little quieter place. And so I actually really love the balance between like everybody talking and working together, and then like, oh, okay, now it's time to like work in pairs or work independently and like get this the way we want it, so that we can like pitch it to Desus and Mero, or get it ready to go out in the field with a field producer. And so yeah, I think the culture is like a lot more collaborative, just by like the nature of the show, because we're not writing like 30-page scripts, citing like various like Pew Research studies.
Can I jump in on that too? I think that like that, what Josh is talking about with the collaboration and the balance, has been the biggest challenge of this time. Not the biggest challenge for like our country.
Now you have challenges.
There's a pandemic, Mike.
Not like, I don't mean to like, but the biggest challenge for our work, like our writers room culture, has just been like keeping that culture going over Zoom. And because I'm not a person who I don't love an unnecessary meeting. So we'll be doing a lot on Slack, we'll be doing a lot on email, and then it'll be like, oh, it's been a couple days, I should probably like hop on with the writers, and we should all talk to each other and see each other's faces and stuff. So that has been a challenge for this time, and I imagine every writer's room has its own version of how they're dealing with it. I know some places everyone hops on at 9 a.m. and they go through the day for an hour, and then everyone breaks off, and ours is much more like, let's check in, via Slack or something, and then we'll talk when we have to, kind of. And so it's just been an interesting balancing act, and I hope we can get back into our room that has windows soon.
Oh, yes, I know. I miss our writer's room. I do.
Yeah, I will probably cry, I'm warning you now. So that's good.
LOL. Never would have thought a room with windows would really change the game. It's
a full game changer.
Noted. And why? I mean, Michael, obviously you've spoken to, the pandemic is real. I hope folks are out there in the world wearing masks, taking care of yourself and your family. But, for folks that don't necessarily like Slack, right? Like when you have 900,000 Slack channels, is Slack efficient? But just thinking about kind of like that overall, how has your team been adapting to producing remotely? Like we heard from you, can we hear a little bit are you loving Slack? Are you excited to see Josh the next time?
I I like in person. Like I'm not loving. It's okay, and I feel so grateful that we can do our work from home. That like it's possible.
Yeah.
You know, still got to count our blessings. But girl, it's grating on me. We are getting tired of Zoom meetings. Okay, I'm tired. I want to do a field piece in the field. Sorry, I do.
LOL.
Heaven's shooting this great field piece this week, and she can't go to set. She's got to just watch over Zoom while like she's like gonna be, and so it's like heartbreaking.
It is. But you know, we're keeping it safe. We're taking all the precautions. So we got to respect that.
Mm-hmm.
But I do miss it.
Pour out a little water for when we were outside.
Right. And our host, I mean, first of all, like just to real quick, when everything shut down, our like post team and our producers and everybody, like people weren't sleeping for 2 weeks for lots of reasons, but one of them was that they were trying to figure out how to make the show remotely, and they did, and we were back up and running remotely really quickly. And I hate that we have to do remote shows, but I love our remote shows. I really do. I think that they're like, the guys have not lost a step, and it's like just it's joyful to watch for me as just a fan and whatever, and it's so great to be a part of. And then I think that I had a second point, but I got so lost in my joy that I forgot it. So
we're victorious. They'll never take the joy from us. I think those were all my questions. Thank you all for that. But we want to open it up for questions from the people. Andrew, thank you for joining us. We would love to hear your question.
Well, you guys kind of answered my question already. It was about getting a job at your show. So, I mean, since you answered that, I guess I could be more specific. I remember you was going over like a packet and stuff like that. So I was wondering, how would I go about that? And like, who can I follow or what can I follow to know exactly when an opportunity is open? Or not even for your show, including other shows as well.
No, I know that's like that I remember being the big question when I was starting, was just being like, okay, how do I know? Like, I know, if I could get in a room, maybe I could make something happen, but how do I get in that room? And I think that that's the big thing. It's like that whole, how do I get an agent if I need a job to get an agent and all that? It just gets circular. I think, I mean, like I said earlier, I think like know what show it really helps, I find, when people reach out and they like, they're reaching out not to just like every late night show and being like, I want a job, but what's worked for me personally, and I'll let someone else talk, is like knowing exactly what I want and going for that. You know what I mean? And not being too firm about it, that if something comes up I don't take it or something, but just knowing, like, I remember when I got to New York City being like, oh, I want to work in TV, and here's like the places that I would want to work, and I like made a list, and one of them was public television, and then I found a job there and worked there for 5 years, you know what I mean, that kind of thing. And so that and then when I actually like had a little career going and had an agent and stuff, I said like, hey, I would not leave this job for any other job unless it was Desus Mero looking for a head writer. I like said those words.
Okay,
and then
look at
manifested.
No, but I think that's, I mean, I know that at that point I already was coming from a position of great like privilege of having an agent to even say that to, but I think that knowing what you want, and so like, knowing who works at Desus Mero and following them and that kind of stuff is just super helpful. I think knowing what you want. I'm sorry, again, rambling.
Yeah, I would second following everybody who writes for the shows that you're interested in. I don't think if you don't have connections in the industry, I don't think it's an option to do social media. I think you have to do it. It's the only way to find out about these things. So follow every writer or whatever types of podcasters or whatever medium you're interested in, filmmakers. Follow all the people you're interested in because they frequently tweet about jobs. They don't always list the jobs, so you just kind of have to see it sometimes, which is wild.
Yeah.
So social media, and then listening to their interviews where they talk about how they got started. That I found that to be really helpful.
Research, R&D, y'all. R&D. Do the Googles.
I appreciate it. I've been
Thank you.
doing multiple things on the side as well. Like I just finished training to be an HBO production accountant. So
Wow.
yeah, so hopefully I can do that and work my way up, and then who knows? Maybe I'll
that
be
kind
back again.
That's awesome. That kind of stuff I think is so valuable. Like honestly, like just working near the thing that you maybe production accounting is their passion, and maybe it's just like, oh, I want to be in the TV industry. And I think that is getting a job that helps you pay your bills while you can be near the thing. So if you're a production accountant on a show, and that might just be all you need to know to hear about when a job opens up, and then that kind of thing. I think that stuff is super valuable.
Cool. Thank you so much, Andrew.
Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you very much.
Next question.
Hi, I'm Amarachi. This is not a writing question, but thank you all for doing this. I just got my first full-time job this year after graduating last year, also after feeling like an intern for 30 years. So I was really grateful to get my first full-time job. But 4 months in, it's now October, I got it in June, I realized that I don't really like PR as much as I thought I could tolerate it. And I truly do like social media and working with, audiences and talking to them, connecting with them, making content for them. So I guess my question is, how do I get myself out of this rut that's I'm not doing exactly what I want to do and lead myself to what I want to do? And how do I convey to my employees that I don't feel as challenged in the position as I thought I would be?
Josh, you look like you got the answer. Let's get it.
That's such a good question. I mean, that's so huge. I think the idea of going from the thing you're doing to pay the bills to the thing you want to be doing is so stressful and feels like it has to be done in one big leap. But I do think it's something you can kind of always be tinkering with and working on if you have, with a little extra time, making sure that you're carving out a little time. Not that everybody has abundant free time, but I do think oh, you're not being challenged at your job. That's very annoying that you're doing something not stimulating all day, but also that's the chance to oh, maybe I have 15 minutes here or there to work on my own stuff. And I think with a job like that where you're oh, I'm not getting enough to do, I'm always Mike kind of said this about shooting your shot, but I always feel asking for the thing you want once is never the wrong move. To be hey, I've noticed that this is happening. Is there any way that I could be involved with it and participate? I think I would really be able to add something, and it would really help my development. I have time. It wouldn't take away from my other obligations. I think that kind of stuff is super useful. And then if they say, and no one reasonable will be go to hell. And if they do say that, that means they're an unreasonable person, and you're not going to get where you want with them anyway.
Easy.
Hello. As a writer and filmmaker from the Bronx, can you offer any insight as to how I can enter the entertainment industry? I feel like you guys kind of touched upon that in your discussion, but I am interested in comedy writing, but I'm not sure how to really build my network and which skills I should further develop based on my experience.
Heaven or Michael, want to hop in?
I think it's kind of a broad answer, but I think if you follow, if you're not sure what skills to develop, I would, you're getting started, I would develop the ones that you enjoy doing the most. So if it's stand up, all this is people aren't starting stand-up careers right now, unfortunately, but hopefully soon. But I think that finding the skill you want to develop is all about when you're starting out, and when you're younger, is all about finding the thing that you enjoy the most. And that's easy to say because obviously you have to pay bills and things like that too. But I think that you don't want to get stuck 5 years, 10 years down the road and realize you developed a skill like making web videos or something, or that is not actually the thing that you want to do. If the thing that you want to do is be a comedy writer, then I think that the skill to develop would be to write things and to try to produce them if that's the best way to get them seen and things like that. But I think that it's all about at the moment finding the thing that you like doing and that maybe you feel like you have an affinity for and following that. And yeah, in terms of building a network, I think like if you have people that you like working with now, like whether it's at your school or just friends or things like that, I would keep those relationships. And I don't mean to just say that in a cynical way of like everyone can be used for networking. I don't mean that. I just mean that like those are the people who you work with now when you're starting that are gonna in 10 years, in 15 years, be people who you're still close with if you are, and then B, just the people who will have risen up and will be able to help you with this thing, or like maybe this person has a camera that you can use to shoot something, or maybe this person can read your pilot and give you feedback on it, or that kind of thing. So I think that just developing the people that you know now and that you work with now can be super helpful. And then in addition, all the stuff we've said about social media and all that.
Sure. And before we hop into the next question, I have a major key. Ask how you can be of service. Period. Like do some work on your own and then ask the people that you admire how you can be of service. No one asks how they can support and help, and have a fundamental knowledge of what they are already doing in the world. So maybe if there is a typo on that website and you're a website designer and you say, hey, can I fix your website for free? Or can I, whatever it is, asking how you can be of service is a major key. Thank you for that question. The next question. Hey, am I?
Hello, am I here? Hi. Anyway, yeah, my question is, I'm like a huge late night fan, and I was wondering for Josh coming from Last Week Tonight, and then from Mike and Haven coming from Colbert. I like those shows a lot. I was wondering how you felt like navigating like the shift from those respective shows to this one, because they're very different. Like Last Week Tonight, it's like very thesis statement, and like Colbert, very topical in politics. And so I was wondering if you could speak to like the similarities and differences and like how you like navigated doing that. Thank you.
Great. So for me, it is like a 180-degree difference in like the actual writing. And just because like Last Week Tonight is so scripted, it is so researched, and Desus and Mero is like so much like I'm the irrigation. And so I'm pitching sillier stuff. I'm like not hammering out as many words. It's just like a very different, I'm like working more with edits, which like the writers at Last Week Tonight are very like writer centric, and so you're just like writing words and then just like they go off and they happen away from you, and it's a lot more hands-on. I think there were a lot of skills that translated in terms of like really knowing what you want from a pitch. Like when you're pitching something, really like envision it top to bottom so that you are pitching something that like can exist, as opposed to like a funny joke that then floats away because there's like not a way to sustain it. Things like that. I think like the kind of like fundamentals of like television writing and production are there's a lot of crossover that I found really useful for my last job, like really specific word choices that communicate things really clearly. Like that's always going to be useful. But in terms of just like the day to day, it is so different that it's like hilarious in a way that like I'm so grateful that I got to go from like a dream job to another dream job, and getting to do like such a variety of skills.
Yeah, I do feel really like just so grateful for the healthy amount of Trump that we do on the show.
Oh.
A healthy amount, but it doesn't have to be the whole show, and that's nice.
We've gone many shows without mentioning his name once. It was great. Oh, we love it. We love to see it. It was really
keep that same energy.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think just to reiterate exactly that. I think that like going from a daily topical and thing where you're just glued to the news all day, this is much more just about what works for our show. And that's not to say that the other shows aren't doing the same thing, but I just mean that it's like, what, you know, we don't need to get into what, oh my, did you see the statement Bill Barr released today or whatever it is, like, or, you know, I don't know that we've ever said the words Rod Rosenstein on the show, which is great.
Leave that
but
for Showtime's The Comey Rule.
We were contractually obligated to plug the Comey Rule 7 times per panel, so we're getting there. But I think that I just to reiterate what Josh said, I think it's just been night and day, and it's, you know, we're pitching, like, it's working in the edit, it's pitching a lot more. Something I didn't mention is that we are pitching like stories to the guys to cover on the show, but we're also pitching sketches and field pieces, and that's where a lot of the, you know, there's a lot more writing involved, there's a lot more kind of like beat by beat, how does this going to go, that kind of thing, and that's been really fun. And it's really fun to focus on that stuff when you don't have to kind of focus on so much like getting to the bottom of every news story and making sure that we're explaining it in full detail, that kind of stuff, which again is not a slam on any of the other shows, it's just not what we do.
Hey guys, how you doing?
Hey.
Thank you all for, you know, being part of this panel. I'm taking some great notes here. I have a question though, like, what advice do you have for people that want to like start in their own late night show, like be the head of it?
I would recommend starting a podcast. I think it is very similar structurally to a late night show, and it is a thing that you do not need a lot of resources to do, whereas you do need a lot of resources to make a late night show. Obviously, you can make a web version, but I think even just starting with the lower expectations of not having to perform the thing, but just saying the words out or writing out segments, I feel like that's a great way to start. Either way, if it's not the medium for you, just starting and making the thing, whatever way you can, is, I think, your best bet.
Got it.
Make the thing. Make the thing.
Make the thing. I mean, that's like, I think that's so valuable and so helpful. Like, whatever you can do, and it doesn't always have to be like, I think it would be, you know, it doesn't have to be like take classes. It can just be like, okay, figure out where you can find space to like put on a show. Like, if you want to, like, if you're like, if the podcast doesn't suit you, you can do live shows, or you can do live streams. Like, I mean, even like Twitch is something, you know what I mean? Like, Twitch is something, he said oldly, but like whatever medium works for you to like practice and hone your skills and like let people find the work you're doing is valuable and helpful. So and I think saying podcast is like so right on, because it's something you can make that's durable, that people can go back and listen to old episodes when they find it new. It can build over time. There's not the expectation of like, oh, my thing only has 3 views on it and it looks bad. It's like, that's all kept secret, and just like let it grow as it grows. But I think just like doing the kind of work, and like Mike said, find the kind that speaks to you, and that feels satisfying and fulfilling to work on. Because I think the better you get at something you don't like doing, the more opportunities you're going to get to do that thing you don't like. So like, that's a tough box to put yourself in too.
I have like a 2-part question. And the first one is, how do I go about finding like a writer's assistant job during COVID? And this one's, I guess, kind of relates to you guys. And how do you reach out to old bosses and not be annoying and just like try to check in? Well,
I will say, as one of your old bosses, you do a great job of that. I think I will start by saying, like, what would a person do is like my guiding principle in any kind of interaction when I'm overthinking it, where I'm like, hey, would a person email this boss to be like, hey, how are you doing? This is what I'm up to. Do you know of anything in this area? Thank you for your time. Like, that is like the question I ask myself every time. And you're a person, like everyone watching this is a person, and almost, I would say 99% are like fairly reasonable people. So just like, that is such a helpful principle of like, are they going to be mad at me? It's like, probably not. Like Mike said, nobody gets that mad at you shooting a shot in the DMs if you have DM access to someone. It's just like being thoughtful and kind, and not being like, hey, give me that. But like, hey, like you have a relationship, whatever your relationship to a person is, I think just being like respectful of and professional within is like, that's a pretty, just what would a person do is it.
I think it's also just real quick. I think it's okay to just remind people that you exist. Like if that, it's very helpful for me for when people reach out and be like, hey, like check in, whatever. But then also there's been people who've reached out to me and said like, hey, if Desus Mero is ever looking for writers, I would love to be considered. I'd love to do a packet or something like that. And for me, I'm thinking of a couple people now where I'm like, oh, I knew you. I didn't know you even wanted to be a TV writer. Mm-hmm. So that is very helpful information. You know what I mean? So I think that, being vocal about, we keep returning to this, but just being vocal about what you want can be super helpful. And also just reminding people that you're out there.
I will also, just a tiny thing is like, a writer's assistant job. Oh, yeah. This might just be me coming from a position of like doing a lot of comedy and like kind of jumping that step because I had like built up a little bit of a name by the time I was applying to stuff. But like every writer's room has like one writer's assistant, and then like, our writer's room is pretty small. We have like 4 staff writer positions, but like the writer positions outnumber the writer's assistant positions. So if you can put yourself in a position where you can like apply to write for something as opposed to apply to be an assistant, by like building up a body of work that like helps sell you to the people hiring, I think that is like an endeavor that is worth considering. I don't mean to be like incredibly naive about that, but it is like everybody at the entry level is like, oh, writer's assistant to writer. But it's like, if you like Heaven had a great body of work before she had her first staff writer job, you don't have to like necessarily be shooting for that one position where like you're reading every resume from the slush pile of like, hello, I found this on cbs.com.
I think before we hop into another question, but just reaching out to your former employers on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. Hey, hope all is well. Yep. I remember you were telling me about your dog. How's your dog doing? Cool. Like that's
Absolutely.
Fine.
Totally.
Ask.
Right. Cultivating like human relationships is really helpful, and nobody is mad at it. And like at worst, as Mike said earlier, sometimes people are like a little busy, but it is so helpful. And as Syreeta said, relationships are everything.
Cindy.
Hello, everyone. First, I want to say thank you for doing this. I'm a big fan, like huge fan. I recognize all of your faces from the office hours. So like I was literally watching an episode the day before. So my question is, I was just wondering like, how have you all balanced doing, survival jobs, making sure there's food on the table, internet is paid, all those things, while also pursuing like your passion projects and, pursuing like your desired careers in entertainment?
Evan, I'm going to start with you.
That challenge, it's been rough. I feel like my family, we're a family of immigrants, and I didn't have anyone that I knew in the industry. So I feel like I had that work the way up hustle, but I also had to do all these other side things because we were working class. We had to, balance college, all that, work study. So it was definitely like, you learn that you don't always need to have the most glamorous thing or glamorous title or job to necessarily do the most fulfilling work or work that is going to be most helpful to your growth. And I feel like I've gotten better at also saving money for my eventual mental breakdown. And then I have that little cushion for that time, and then I take a little time off, and then I get back on the grind.
Yeah, I think that's such a great question, Cindy. And I think like for me, when I was teaching full time and like doing stand up at night and like trying to squeeze writing in, my teaching job was like something that didn't ruin my life to have to go to. Like I wasn't miserable all day, and it didn't conflict with the time that I wanted and needed to do the other stuff. And I think it's like, okay, like Heaven said, it's okay to not have like a glamorous industry job as long as what you're doing affords you the financial and like logistical flexibility to like make art or pursue this kind of entertainment work.
This is a master class, y'all. I hope y'all take it. I hope y'all got 50,000 Post-its on your wall right now. Next question.
Hello, and the same as Cindy, I just want to first say I am a huge fan of the show, and I do recognize you guys all as well. And is super appreciative. And my question was that I know, like working with Desus Mero, I know they are, as we can all tell, they are very huge personalities, and I just wanted to say, like, is there anything that you guys have all like learned now working with them, or like I guess just the whole field as a whole? Thank you.
I've learned so much.
So much.
I've learned so much stuff I should not repeat here. But no, so much. No. I mean, like they just. So I've learned a lot, but I think it's so much of it is just how they handle. You learn from any kind of anyone you work with, but especially any like host, anyone who's in charge in that power position. And I think the way that the guys handle being bosses, which is they're just extremely generous. They're like, everybody who's here is a part of the team. I think I've, not that I've ever worked for any like monsters or anything like that, but I just think you learn again and again. And I think that that's probably the biggest thing I've learned from working with them is just how generous they are with their staff, how generous they are with their, like, just with us, and then also with each other. Like, you have to be that generous to kind of, they'll get out of the way of each other's jokes and stuff like that. Watching them kind of do that dance every week, twice a week, is incredible. And so that's, I think, the biggest thing that I've learned.
Hi guys. First of all, Brooklyn in the building. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, Brooklyn, go. Nah.
My question to all the panelists, sorry if you could like see my humongous forehead.
Hey, look, I'm not gonna throw stones at a humongous forehead over here.
My question for all the panelists were, it's very easy early on in your career. I'm a college senior right now. It's very easy to copy and paste people's styles. And my question to you guys were, how did you all respectively sort of develop your own styles of comedy? Like, how did you put your own flavor on it? Yeah, thanks.
Good question.
That's a great question.
I feel like I've learned to lean into who I am and stop trying to pretend or pretend I'm not who I am. Yeah, I am who I am.
Your famous catchphrase, Heaven.
And I do think I come from a very unique vantage point, and I feel like maybe sometimes I shied away from that. But yeah, just leaning into, I'm an immigrant, I'm a young Black woman. I feel like growing up when I did in America at the time, it's a very specific experience. And I feel like the more specific, I've learned that just the more specific you are and more passionate you are about the things you like or the things that make you laugh, it always makes everyone else's day better. If you carry that enthusiasm or energy towards, what you actually like, not just what you think is hip right now, which is like, if I want to make a late night show, I got to sound like John Oliver. You don't have to.
Yeah, you don't have to fake a British accent. I think this is like so close to what Heaven was saying, but like sometimes the things that feel natural to you and the things that feel like, oh, this is dumb, or like, oh, this is nothing because it just like came to me, that's a gift. And you don't like, you can like get out of the way of the part of you that's like, no, stop, that could never work. Like to do the things that like feel fluid and natural and like what makes you laugh. And then this was a thing I got the specific wording of it from hearing Mike Birbiglia talk about it, but like it's a negotiation between like the thing you just naturally would do if no one was watching and like the thing an audience wants to hear. And if they're not meeting you all the way where you are, you like take one step forward and see if you can draw them to you that way. You don't have to like start by meeting them where you assume they're coming from.
I would also just add quickly, notice every time you laugh. Why are you laughing? Just literally even that tiny act of like, what tickled me on social media today and why helps you to, like, just learn about yourself.
Hey guys, I was just wanting to ask how you balance that feeling of knowing what you write could have an actual impact on people culturally that day, even if it is just for making you the main character of the day on Twitter. How you balance that? Is it something that's in your head while you're writing?
I think it's hard to kind of not have that be in your head, but it is helpful to not have that be in your head. Like it's helpful to just do kind of, for me anyway, what I think is funny or what I think is going to work for our show or that kind of stuff, or you know, kind of related to the last question, just finding what it is that made me laugh about something, and try not to get too much in my head about like how many people are watching, and how many people are you know, I mean, especially, and I think like with our show specifically, we're not, you know, the guys are, it's not the same kind of activist flavor where they're trying to reach people, but they do reach people because just they're so funny and great and they have such incisive commentary, but it's not that kind of, it's just by being funny. And I think that that's what they do. They follow what they think is funny and it works. And that is, I think, what we're all striving to do in a way. And then obviously sometimes you do impact people's lives or write something that's really helpful to someone, and that's the best, obviously.
So many major keys tonight. Heaven, Josh, Michael, y'all are literal gems.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you so
Syreeta,
much.
thank you. This was such a pleasure to chat with you.
Thank you. Let's do it all again. Center for Communication, y'all are the bomb always. Good people. Y'all could have been anywhere. You're back. And now you're gone. Again, it happened so fast. 0 to 100 quick. Thank y'all for tuning in. Good night. Y'all be cool like how y'all be cool. Cheers.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you.
Good night.